Welcome to the Area Podcast from the Ames Regional Economic Alliance. I'm your host, Eric Smith. On today's episode, we're joined by Grace Larkey, Community Affairs Advisor at Chevron. Grace shares her journey from a Northwest Iowa farm to renewable energy communications, how community involvement has shaped her career, and why mentorship, relationships, and regional partnerships are important to the future of the Ames region. This episode is presented by Flynn Wright, a full-service ad agency in Iowa that works with some of the best brands in the world. When you love what you do, you show up differently. And for more than 40 years, the love of advertising has fueled the people, the energy, and the bold ideas at Flynn Wright. Grace Larkey, thank you for being on this episode of the Area Podcast. How are you?
I'm good. Thanks for having me, Eric. I appreciate it.
So, Community Affairs Advisor for Chevron. We have a lot to unpack. As I was going through my notes, I sort of chuckled to myself. So you're in communications, you've done media relations. I'm like, we could do a whole episode just talking shop about all of these things. But no, I have a whole list of other things to work or to talk to you about, and one of the really big things was just being engaged like in the community. And so we were just talking about this right before we came on. So working for Chevron, talk to me a little bit just about what your current role is, because I think it's going to transition us in a really good way into all these things we want to talk about.
Yeah, I appreciate the question. So as you said, my role is a community affairs advisor at Chevron. So Chevron actually just went through a reorganization at the end of 2025. Where we restructured the teams a bit. And so that gave me the opportunity to have a bit of a different role than I had been in. But in my current role as community affairs advisor, I really focus on supporting relationships with our communities, fostering connections with organizations in our community, both here in Ames and then also at locations in the Midwest where we have assets. So biodiesel plants and then renewable natural gas assets is really what Chevron's presence looks like here in the Midwest. So it's a variety of things, but things like having relationships with the local chamber organizations and maintaining our memberships there, helping our employees find volunteer opportunities in the communities, giving money back to the communities where we operate, maintaining relationships with some of our trade associations, and then a whole host of a variety of other things. Do a little bit still on the communications, public relations side of things, but more focus on community affairs now.
So I'm going to come back to a lot of that, but this was working with Chevron. This was your first job out of college, right?
Yeah, it was. So
tell me how it's evolved over the years.
Yeah. So when I started, I graduated from Iowa State in 2018, and I started a week later at at the time was Renewable Energy Group, or REG. So those of the listeners who are in Ames may remember REG, Renewable Energy Group. That name might be familiar. So at that time, I joined the organization. REG was a biodiesel, renewable diesel company. So started in Western Iowa at a farmers cooperative. They had an excess of soybean oil and needed to find something to do with it. And so invested some money and time into biodiesel research and production, and eventually commercialized biodiesel production. And they moved to Ames in the early 2000s. So that business has been here since the early 2000s. So when I joined in 2018, we were in a bit of a growth pattern, I would say. The business was growing, profits were growing. And so in 2022, the business got acquired by Chevron Corporation. So I was reflecting this morning, when I started 2018 to 2022, I spent 4 years kind of under that REG umbrella. REG was obviously a publicly traded company, so still a large presence, and we felt like it was a big company at that time. But now 2022 to 2026, I've been part of Chevron. So it's been interesting that I guess I've been part of Chevron as long as I was part of REG. But it's been fun. It's been a really interesting journey we've been on the last 4 years.
So we're going to go back even further. I don't know why we don't start from the very beginning at times, but your background, here in Iowa, grew up in Iowa in agriculture, going to Iowa State University. Tell me a little bit about just your background on a couple of those things, because I think a lot of it leads into your current role now as well.
Yeah, for sure it does. So as you said, I grew up in Northwest Iowa on a small farm, so a small row crop cattle farm. Very rural Iowa, kind of what you traditionally think of when you think of rural Iowa. And then that led me here to Iowa State. I wasn't sure what I was going to study, but I had an interest in agriculture. And so obviously Iowa State was a really natural fit for that. So I studied agricultural communications at Iowa State, which is essentially like journalism for the ag industry. And then I knew I wanted to stay working in agriculture in some capacity after I graduated. So I was looking at a variety of careers in the ag space, and REG happened to have a job open, and so I applied and took that opportunity. Obviously, biodiesel production, as I kind of alluded to. So we use waste, fats, greases, and oils from traditionally the ag industry. So things like soybean oil, animal fats, distillers corn oil from ethanol production. And we can convert those through a chemical process into lower carbon fuel. So I really liked the opportunity to kind of to work at REG and add value back to agriculture. So obviously that was something that was important to me, still is important to me today. And so it's been fun to see the business grow and be part of that journey.
So when did the communications part of it, you had said that you went to Iowa State, not sure what you want to do. And I'm a big advocate of when you're 17, 18, you probably shouldn't know what you want to do the rest of your life. I mean, let's be honest.
A lot of people our age still say, I don't know what I want to do.
That's correct. That's correct. But when did the communications part come into play? Because I know you were very active in 4-H and less the livestock part of it, but more like the other pieces of 4-H, as in the communications. Like, is that when it kicked off for you, or were there other moments?
Yeah, I think it probably is. When I look back and reflect on growing up, I think that really instilled a passion in me for communications and kind of the public relations side of things. So, as you said, I grew up pretty involved in the 4-H program in my hometown and kind of at the state level as well. And I was less involved on the ag side. So I think that's a common misconception about 4-H is that it's only for ag kids or you only show livestock or whatever it may be. But I actually wasn't as involved or really involved in much capacity on the ag side, but really was involved heavily in communication. So things like doing educational presentations and working exhibits, and we did extemporaneous speaking where you got a prompt and had 20 minutes to write a speech and then had to present it in front of a judge. So
seriously?
Yeah, some of those things that are like really uncomfortable experiences or hard experiences, but felt really empowering, I think, when you were done. And I think I really started loving kind of that piece of 4-H and just the ability to share different messages and stories with people and audiences. And so I also had a mentor in 4-H. She has a ag communications business where she does like agency work essentially for different pieces of the ag sector on my hometown in small town Iowa. And so I think she probably influenced me in some capacity as well that ag communications could be a fun career path to take. And so figured that out in college and have been doing that since.
So like when you reflect on like those times, is it sort of obvious? Like, do you still have like takeaways that like you learned during that time, but of course like you're implementing today, or maybe those were like pivotal moments?
Yeah, I think so. I think like too, looking back, like I said, I entered college undecided, didn't know what I was going to do. I think if I look back, I'm like, it was pretty obvious that this is the path I should have gone down. Like I should have seen that right away. But to your point, 17 or 18, you have no idea. But I think that, the ag background, the communications pieces, it fared well to set me up for a career in ag communications. And I think there are a lot of things that still stick with me from those experiences. I feel like as much as I still prefer being behind the camera, like having those experiences makes it so it's probably a little bit easier for me to speak in front of groups and speak in front of leadership at work and be involved in some of the things in the community. And I think instilled in me a passion for some of those kinds of things. Yeah. And so I definitely think some of that sticks with me today.
So when you get to Renewable Energy Group, I mean, it was your first job out of Iowa State University. I always joked, and I've probably told this story, on the podcast where, my first job out of college, I was 23 or, whatever at the time. And it's like, you'll take any job. I mean, you don't know what it is. Was that the case at REG at the time, or were you specifically wanting to go there? Clearly you're trying to get in the agriculture space, but...
Yeah, I knew I wanted to be in the ag space, so I was applying for jobs primarily in the ag sector. But no, it was very much a similar experience of I'll take any job, anyone who will hire me, please take me. I had a friend who had interned at REG at the time, and so I think I always say she gave me a foot in the door at REG. It's a who you know type of situation, but I definitely didn't know what I was getting into at that time. I didn't know much about biodiesel, renewable diesel, just like basic skills you don't realize you're going to need when you start working. And so it's always a bit of a shock, but it was a great opportunity, and obviously has continued to be a fun career.
So you had alluded to it before. Your time now with Chevron is sort of broken up into two areas. So in the first half, of your career, what is now Chevron, it's REG. You're learning the craft of your role. You're sort of learning the areas where you're good, or where maybe you have like some knowledge discrepancies, and then you have this second half of transitioning into this large global company. Compare the two a bit. I mean, like, how has your role shifted? How has it changed? I know that you've held, different titles in between there, but just sort of talk to me about that evolution a little bit.
Yeah, it's a great question. Probably could unpack that for an hour, but try to hit some of the high notes. It's been just really interesting being on the journey from REG to Chevron. So obviously, like I alluded to, I at the time felt like REG was a really big company. We had a global presence and 1,200 employees or so, kind of across the globe, working for the organization. And then overnight, you go from that, what you feel like is a big company, a big role, to a company that literally is everywhere around the world and has 38,000 employees. So the size of your world just like blows up overnight, which was just a really interesting experience to go through. I feel like we were really lucky in REG because we were a small team, that we had the opportunity to have a diversity of experiences. So like you had alluded to, like when I started at REG, I was doing more like internal communications, event planning type of work, and then transitioned to doing a bit more on the external side of things. And toward the end of the REG days was doing a bit of the media relations work. And so then when we got thrown into Chevron, having experiences in a variety of those areas was really helpful to be able to communicate proficiently with our new colleagues who, had maybe been with Chevron for 20 years and had a vast array of experiences as well. So that was, I think, really helpful. I feel like was a really a big blessing. I said I shared with you before we started talking, like there are interesting pieces of working for Chevron. Like at times, just finding the person you need to ask the question to can be a challenge. Like who do I even pick up the phone and call to get the answer to my question? But with that comes so much opportunity as well to have such a big team and such a large array of knowledge. And Chevron has such a big presence, obviously, around the globe that gives us so much access to different opportunities, which is really cool.
What I find interesting, certainly in companies of that scale, is they need this global lens, and they need to understand things at this very high level, that can be impactful across the globe. But yet at the same time, they need to have teams, and you're part of that team here locally, that invest in the local community, because Chevron is really only, or any large company is really only as good as the pieces that it can keep together, in their case, all across the globe. So you had talked some about finding, your staff and team members opportunities to volunteer or where to invest money. Mm-hmm. Why is that important? I mean, not only for Chevron, but I mean, if you could speak to some points as to why that's important for, any company of a certain scale.
Yeah, I think we feel really strongly, we Chevron, we here in the community feel really strongly about being engaged in our communities with volunteering and giving money back to the communities and being involved in organizations like the Alliance. I think there's a variety of things. I think having a strong reputation is really important, especially for an organization like Chevron, who is manufacturing products. So if there comes a day where you have an incident, if you have a strong reputation already in that community, I think that the days that follow can be a lot easier if you've invested the time and energy into the communities you operate in. I think it's important for employees to be engaged in the communities, to give their time and give back to the community. I feel like that's good for morale, good for team building. Some of those fringe benefits that maybe you can't quantify just sitting in an office, sitting at a desk. So I think that's really important. And then I think just as a whole, like being involved in some of the organizations like the Alliance or with the nonprofit partners, you can get a lot of value for the business as well when you think about access to people who maybe know the right people for the next project you need to work on, or when you think about access to lobbyists who are going to advocate for issues for you at the state and federal level. Some of those kinds of things, I think, add a lot of value too, that it can be hard to quantify some of that. Like the ROI can be challenging, but I think that, we know that those things are really important.
But do you ever talk about ROI on those things, or is it just, I mean, all the points that you articulated, like, the positive outcomes of these things? Like, we don't need to go searching and for this return on investment because we know it's there, yet it's impossible to quantify.
Yeah. I think people in big business love to try to put numbers to everything. So I think there's days where we're trying to figure out how you quantify it. But I think it is more of the things, like you said, that we know are important. And we can tie that back to, our workforce and who the types of people we're attracting and retaining, and some of the key community activities or community needs, tying back some of our donations to key community needs. Yeah. A really big one this year we've been focusing on is how do we maintain our license to operate in our community? So what are the things that we can support that let us make sure we can continue to exist in this community? So that's things like workforce. So what are some of the things we can, give money to that helps to support employees or workforce in our community? And can we give to emergency response organizations that would respond to us in the event of an incident? I think that's especially important at our manufacturing facilities. So sometimes it takes one or two steps to get to some of those things, but that's like kind of the lens with which we're looking at giving back and engagement in our communities. Well,
one of the things that we talk about is one of our core values is just greater good. And that oftentimes gives us permission to do things because we say that it's part of our core values. I mean, it's this greater good, and then we don't have to go crazy on figuring out, well, did we get our money out of it? Did we get our time spent out of it? It's just we can simply chalk it up to that, which is kind of what I'm hearing coming from you as well. Tell me what you just said again about the your license.
Yeah, we talk about giving back to our communities to help us maintain our license to operate. So continuing to exist in the community.
Is that a local thing or is that like a Chevron thing?
It's a Chevron thing. Yeah. Oh. We talk about that kind of across the board. And I think that can, like I said, I gave a few examples, but like even like supporting organizations that provide childcare, right? Because if you don't have childcare, you can't attract or retain workforce. Right. And if you don't have workforce, you can't exist in the community or you can't run your business. And so there's a lot of things that quickly you can see tie into that kind of that mantra or that reason for us to continue to support our communities.
So I'm hearing this come from you, but when you speak with other people, say in other communities or that are part of Chevron, is it seen as sort of the responsibility of the organization to invest in these things?
Yeah, I definitely think so. I think we view it as a responsibility to be a good corporate steward, a good community steward to support our communities. We're really lucky on this side of the business. Biodiesel and renewable diesel are typically viewed really favorably in the communities where we operate. They're adding value to agriculture. A lot of the communities we're in are really small rural communities, so lots of ties to agriculture, so people really love that. They add jobs to the communities, support the local economy. So I think we're really lucky to kind of be operating on this side of the business. I think, when you look at like Chevron's traditional business, the oil refineries, sometimes there is a little bit of less favorable response to those refineries and communities. And so I think that's where Chevron pushes even harder to make sure that they're being good stewards in their community, responsible citizens, protecting people in the environment, taking care of our neighbors, all of those things that are really important that, again, help us to continue to exist in those locations.
Well, I mean, you're living proof of this mentality. I mean, I feel like as I was looking at guests, I kept getting you should talk to Grace. You should talk to Grace. And I think one of the reasons is that you are everywhere. And not only are you helping lead this locally for Chevron, but you're implementing it as well. And we're going to go through a lot of these, just the number of boards and committees that you're a part of. Certainly the Area Young Professionals Organization, actively involved in that. But for someone who not only encompasses it local or professionally, under the Chevron, you're encouraging others to find volunteer opportunities. You're doing it yourself. Give me the pitch. Give me the elevator pitch. Why this is important for everyone, including young professionals.
Yeah, I feel like maybe going back to my upbringing, being part of the 4-H program. I think at an early age I was exposed to being part of something bigger than yourself, looking outside of kind of your day to day and looking at the needs around you and being able to make a difference in those areas. So I think for me, it's always been something that's been really important to my life, to be able to give back and help those people and organizations who need help and who may not have as many opportunities or blessings as we do in our daily life. So I think, I think that from a young professional perspective, there's a lot of benefit both for yourself and for your community to be involved. So I think everything from what I mentioned earlier about like creating a network of people, and if there's an opportunity in the future that you need to know someone for a new career or whatever it may be, having a network of people is really helpful, and being involved in the community is a great way to do that. I think just being able to support organizations that you care about, I think that's important. I think it's important to the people around you to show that. And for me, like being able to show that to my kids, I think is really important as well.
Were you always wired like this, though? I mean, were you like this in college where you're like, I'm just going to get involved in this and this and this and this? And is it easy for you?
Yeah, I was definitely this way in college too. Like I feel like I tend to oversubscribe myself, and I think that's something I'm working on, right? Like a lot of people is, how do you say no when you're asked to do something or something that maybe you don't actually have time for. But yeah, I feel like I'm a very busy person. I love being busy. I love being involved. I love meeting people. Like I just love meeting different people, learning their stories, and when I'm able to do that and support community organizations and community activities while doing that, I just find a lot of joy in doing that.
One of the things that an underlying theme, I feel like, of our organization is, we get this feedback a lot where, wow, I can't believe like all of the things that, you're engaged with. And not just me personally, but, across our entire organization. And I feel like we wire ourselves to try to do more, to try to make a difference. We do economic development, but we're also part of community development as well. And we always want to find more and more things to do. But one of the things that I have found, not only with our organization, but the people within the organization, is that the more that you exercise your capacity, the more capacity you end up having, and it becomes easier and easier. And I find that, so many people, it's so easy. It's easy to go to work. And of course, you're going to have child responsibilities if you're in that phase of life and other things. We just keep saying yes to everything. And I just feel like it's always easy to say no to stuff unless you tell yourself, we're just going to keep saying yes. We're just going to keep doing more. Do you find that?
Yeah, I definitely think both at work and in my personal life, like I tend to want to just keep doing more. So I keep saying yes to different things, and maybe I need to be better at saying no actually sometimes. But I like your comment about like capacity. It's actually funny. It just came back 2 months ago from maternity leave. And it's like one of those things we realized when my husband and I were on leave, like we had this list of things we want to do, right? And it's like when you don't have to do it, when you're like, I could do it tomorrow, like it's easy to just continue to like push it off, delay, where it's like if you have 100 things going on and you're like, got to get to the next thing, got to do the next thing, you just get it done and then go to the next thing. So I feel like when you have a full plate, it's easier to just continue to do one thing after the next, versus if you have time and you're just like sitting around waiting to do it, you just continue to procrastinate.
Yeah. Well, young professionals is one of the things that we've seen remarkable growth in just over the past, I would say, maybe year and a half. Just we've seen more and more young professionals want to engage with the organization. And one of the things that we oftentimes talk about when we're talking to, say, larger companies, Chevron, but there's a host of other companies, is encourage your young people to get involved. And Area Young Professionals is a great way to do that, because it's mostly social, yet what it does is that it opens up the doors to this entire network of within the business or community development community as well.
Yeah, I give huge kudos to, you and the Alliance team, Shannon.
Come on, not me.
All of you have been involved, but Shannon especially, for the work you guys have done to support the growth of the organization over the past couple of years. It's been amazing to see and been really fun to be part of it. So I think I maybe first engaged with the young professionals group. I was trying to think back. I think I technically joined in 2018, 2019, sometime after starting my job. And at that time, I think it was Ames area young professionals or something. Then became the Fuel organization. And then in the last couple of years have rebranded, to the area YP organization. And it's been really amazing to just see the growth in that 8-year stint of time. I think now we're over 200 members in the community, and quite a few of those I would say are actively participating in things throughout the year. So it is a really great organization that I feel like I tell people you can make it as much or as little as you want it to be for you, right? So you can come to one thing during the year, you can come to 20 things during the year, depending on your capacity and your interests. And I really like that about the organization. There's just you can make of it what you want, and there's also something for everyone. So to your point, there's social opportunities, lots of networking opportunities, learning and professional development activities. And so I feel like there's definitely any young professional could find a reason or a activity to engage within the group.
This episode of the Area Podcast is sponsored by...
You will be told to follow certain rules for success, and you will follow your instincts instead. You will envy the person who can log off for the day, and you will accept you are not that person. You will start 1,000 sentences with, "This might sound crazy, but what if?" And you will do that crazy thing 1,000 times, because you love what you do, and love will make you do crazy things.
At Northcrest Community, we've made a lot of changes in the last 60 years, but the best things have remained the same. I'm Dawn Borwig, CEO of Northcrest, and I want to tell you why. When you choose Northcrest, you're beginning a new stage of fulfilling, worry-free living. Say goodbye to the burden of home maintenance and hello to an active, engaged community. As the only nonprofit, locally owned and operated community in Ames, we guarantee you a home and our care for the rest of your life. When your needs change, you stay right here, in your community, near your friends and your family. At Northcrest, no one is ever asked to leave because of a lack of funds. That's our nonprofit mission. That's the Life Care Promise. Our residents will tell you, don't wait, don't put it off. Come enjoy all the benefits Northcrest Living has to offer. To learn more, visit our website at northcrestcommunity.org or call to schedule your tour with Kimberly today.
Just south of Iowa State University, in the heart of the Midwest, sits the Iowa State University Research Park, 550 acres of opportunity and innovation. With over 1 million square feet of developed space, it's home to more than 145 tenant companies, from startups to global leaders. Discover innovation hubs, collaborative spaces, and a community that's shaping the future. Whether you're scaling up or starting fresh, ISU Research Park has room to grow. Visit isupark.org to learn more.
Let's stay on the young professionals conversation here. One of the things that was implemented last year was a mentor-mentee relationship where anyone who was a part of Area Young Professionals had an opportunity to be paired with, I'll say, a more seasoned professional in the community. You've been a part of that. Give me your reflections on that as well, because when it was pitched here, it was yes, why haven't we done this before? And it's only grown now into the second year.
Yeah, it's been so cool just over the course of the last year to see the growth of that program alone. So last year was the first year we did it. I think we had something like 15 mentor-mentee pairs, so 15 people who had signed up to participate in that program. And this year, I think we're pushing 35. Yeah. So just to see that more than double in 1 year's time has been really amazing. And we've heard from people who said that they joined Young Professionals to participate in the mentorship program. So that's really cool that there's so much interest and excitement in that program. So I'm participating this year as a mentee. I have a mentor, and it's been such a cool experience. So one of the things that I feel like we're so lucky in Ames that we're, as the YP Advisory Council, we're so grateful for is that we have business leaders who are willing to say yes. So we had reached out to a variety of leaders across the community asking if they'd be willing to participate in the program, and I feel like so many of them within 20 minutes time responded, yes, let me know who you pair me with. Like, we're super excited for that chance. And so I don't think every community has that, where business leaders and professionals are so excited and willing to engage in that activity. And so that's been really amazing, I would say, to see. For me, like, it's been really cool to be able to talk about some of those, like, bigger picture things like career growth and planning for the future and balancing work and life, like some of those kinds of things, those big picture things. But then it's also really cool to just have someone that you can ask like day-to-day questions. So like, I just asked my mentor a couple weeks ago about like a meeting I had coming up, like, how should I approach this? What do you think I should do here? And having a mentor who is in the same type of field of work, like, I feel like it's so easy to learn from them and just like share ideas back and forth. So it's been really fun to be part of that experience.
Well, it's incredible. And I will echo what you said about the willingness of leaders to be able to give their time and meet and connect and answer questions. It really is incredible. And I feel like running it through our organization is certainly helpful. I think the size of our community is helpful, but I feel like the relationships that just continue to be built and how they evolve over time within this community is just so impactful. And I think this is just another great example of that. I'm going to go through a number of other things that you're involved with. You can comment on some or all of them. I'm probably missing some as well. Of course, you're on our Alliance board, but you've served on the Child Serve Community Advisory Board. You're part of Boys and Girls Club, a committee there, United Way Young Leaders Society. I know that there's more stuff that I'm missing, but talk a little bit about any one of these and just be able to give back, or maybe the things that you've learned and just the impact of some of these organizations as well.
Yeah, I feel like, when I talk about some of our leaders in our community, I feel like that's like, as it relates to the nonprofit space in Ames, that's another thing that is like so cool about this community, I think, is that there's so many different nonprofit and service organizations that are really trying to make a difference in our community and make life better for the people in this community and the people in Iowa and sometimes even, around the world. So it's been really cool to be part of some of those different organizations. The Boys and Girls Club was one you mentioned. Yeah. So I joined the Legacy Gala Planning Committee probably like 5 or 6 years ago now. At that time, it was a bit of an opportunity to meet more people. Chevron at the time was donating. We still are donating money to the Boys and Girls Club. And so it was a way to get a bit more engaged with the organization. And it's just been fun to be on the journey the last 5 or 6 years, part of that organization and helping with that event. So that organization too has seen some significant growth over the last 5 years, I would say. Their fundraising has significantly grown, and that event has grown to be, a really premier event in the Ames community. Obviously,
it is. I've been there. Yes.
We're constantly talking about like, where are we going to move this to, because we're running out of space in Sukup. So it's been cool to just like be part of that journey and see some of the growth of some of these organizations, and then see the impact that it's able to be making in the community. So the Boys and Girls Club just finished their expansion, what was that, a year or two ago now, and they're able to double the capacity of the kids they're serving in our community. And so that's really cool to be part of something like that.
So I have found, and I'm going to unpack a number of things that you've said, a number of the things that our organization works on is, I'll take my role, for example. I think yours is probably the same way. I always see that everything that I do, it's part of this lifestyle gig that I have. It's like I feel like the role that I play here, and yes, I have functional things that I do every day and every week, but it all serves like this larger community impact. And I feel like, yours is the same way. Being part of Boys and Girls Club, technically not work, but also kind of is.
Yeah,
I mean,
exactly.
And I have those things as well. We outlined some of these boards that you're on. It's really not part of, Chevron's work, but yet it kind of is as well, because it serves like this larger purpose. And that's something that I think about all the time.
Yeah. Yeah, I definitely that's a really cool way of framing it up, because I do love that about being part of this community and part of some of these organizations, is that it does all start to blend together a bit, which in some ways makes it easier, right? Yeah. To be able to balance work and engaged in the community and family and all of those things in some capacity. And so I'm super grateful. Like our work is, Chevron's really supportive of us, the team members being engaged in the community and in our capacity. You know, it's important for us to be out and about in the community doing these types of things. So it is a supportive environment to be able to do that. But then, yeah, to your point, it also starts to bleed a little bit into just like your day-to-day passion, a little bit into your family and some of those things. Child Serve is a perfect example. So I think I originally engaged on the Child Serve advisory board because Chevron was donating money. So it was another just good avenue to continue to build relationships with some of the leaders there and the foundation team and just have, you know, a closer look at what some of our dollars were doing to make a difference for that organization. Well, then a year or two later, life came around and I started having kids. And so I'm like, well, I need to send my kids to daycare somewhere. Well, hey, Child Serve actually offers a child care program in their facility. And I've been there and I know the leadership and it's a great organization. So let me send my kids there. So now it's like family is involved, right? Because my kids go there and receive services there. And Chevron donates money there, and I get to participate as part of this advisory board. It's really cool to have that like full picture view of it, and makes it so like nothing ever feels like work.
So what's interesting is I've been fortunate to be part of organizations, this organization certainly, where they've understood that yes, there are the functional things of work, but there is this larger thing, and they've always been supportive of it. In fact, I made a list. I don't have it in front of me, but I have a list of all of like the boards and committees and essentially other organizations that people on our team are part of. I suspect that, you know, you could pull together a pretty impressive list just with the people that you work with at Chevron as well. But the thing that I liked about what you said is you started on some of these things because, well, you said, you know, well, Chevron's giving money to it, but it kind of forced your engagement to it, and then you ended up loving it. And one of the things that, you know, we try to talk to companies about is force your young people to be engaged. And maybe that's through area young professionals, pay for their membership, which is hardly nothing at all. I mean, it doesn't cost much, but force them to be engaged in things because it does help them build these roots into a community. And I feel like you're a living example of that.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. I think that that's like a really great way of framing it up. And it's always like one of those things where one thing leads to another, right? So it's like you may join Area YP and then you volunteer with an organization or you join a committee or a board. Like I think those are things that the Area YP team is always promoting is different opportunities to engage in the community. And then you just never know where that will take you, right? Like maybe someday you're working for that organization or your family is using that service for some reason or whatever it may be. I think just having that, that full kind of lifestyle almost view of things, I think can be really helpful. And it does for sure make you want to put roots down and stay in a community. I feel like now, 5 years ago, 7 years ago, whatever it may have been, going from Iowa State to being a resident of Ames is a bit of a different experience, right? Like when you're at Iowa State, you're kind of secluded to your little campus, to the campus world, and you don't necessarily branch out a lot more than that when you're a student. And then when you become an adult, you just interact with different groups of people and in different parts of the community. And 5 or 7 years ago, I was probably like walking into the coffee shop and I probably didn't know anyone, right? Maybe someone I went to school with or maybe someone I work with. Right. And now it's like I walk into the coffee shop on a given day and I know 3, 4, 5 people probably, right? Like it's been cool to have that kind of growth pattern over the last 5 to 7 years maybe to be able to feel more like this is my community now.
Yeah. Well, I'll transition a bit to just kids and work-life balance as well. Again, I'll echo the fact that I love being in a role in the community that forces me to go out. For us, that's going to the farmer's market on a Saturday morning, or just a couple weeks ago, we had 515 Day in downtown Ames where thousands of people were down here. And, we talked with some of our friends. We're like, you should come out to this. You should come out to this. And we do get a lot of people to come out because, we're encouraging them to come out. But it's just, for me, it's a reminder of how easy it is just to stay at home. You go to work, you do these things. But like you said, you see all these people over and over again, and you have this community, so much so that our kids joke about my wife and I, we can't hardly go anywhere without finding somebody to talk to, and we love that. And our kids, they're in middle school, and now they're like, you guys know everyone. We're like, well, that's not entirely true, but I feel like it is a testament to the type of work that we do, and I feel like you're doing the same thing.
Yeah. I always love seeing you and Karen out in the community because I like to always guess, are you here for fun or are you here for work? And
it's always both.
Yeah, I say half the time I honestly don't know. If you have a camera, I'm like, okay, there must be a work component to it. Yeah. But like to your point, I feel like a lot of the times when you are even at something for work, it's fun too, right? Because you start to like create your community. To your point, it's your network of people that you know and that you spend time with and you enjoy spending time with, and then you start doing more things with outside of maybe your day to day or your regular working hours, and it's really. I feel like it's really fulfilling to finally feel like when you're in a community that you're not a native to, like I'm starting to have my community here. That's been really fun, a fun experience.
Well, and for us, it is oftentimes both. I mean, and the difficult thing about us is that, we're in this role where, we're storytellers to celebrate our community. Well, our area that we can talk about is virtually unlimited. I mean, we can go from economic development projects to, downtown Ames, and many of those events are very community-minded events to, we were up in Webster City just this past weekend. They had a Junk Fest event up there. We're like, well, let's go check it out. And of course, while we're there, we're taking some pictures and we're posting them to the Live, Work, Play in Ames social media accounts. So it's this hybrid of yes, it's work, but also we just enjoy doing it. And, and what else could you really ask for, really, is a job that you just love doing?
Absolutely. Yeah, I totally agree with you on that. And I feel like one of the fun things about like that too is just like getting to experience new places and new restaurants or new shops or communities that like maybe otherwise you wouldn't, spend time going to, or to your point, you just like stay home and not go, right? Yeah. So it's like to be able to actually to have a reason to go to those things, or to be like, oh, this is part of my job or part of area YP, whatever it may be, to be able to get out and about and see some of those things, I think is really fun.
Yeah. Well, then it does bring up how do you balance this all? I know that, you have kids, we have kids, they're in middle school. They need us less for like the preparing of food, but they need us a lot more for the, transportation purposes. And, their activities continue to grow and, we're needing to bring them here and there, and then we attend this and that. And so what's interesting about lifestyle gigs is there's also really no way to shut it off as well. And so tell me like just some things that you're thinking about. I mean, you had mentioned coming back from maternity leave. I mean, of course, your children have demands on you and your husband, and how do you just balance all of that between work and then these extracurricular engagements, and then also being present at home as well?
Yeah, I feel like it's a good question, and I'm not doing it perfectly. That's for sure.
Either.
I don't know. Yeah,
me either.
If someone is, like, please call me. Let me know. No, I feel like it is a balancing act, right? I feel like for me, it's always like keeping my priorities straight is what I always try to do. So to me, like, family will always be the most important priority. And so I feel like I always try and focus on that, and then prioritizing other things for different seasons of the year and seasons of life, right? Yeah. So when Boys and Girls Club Gala is coming up, like I know I'm spending a lot of time focused on that, and maybe some of the other things are happening later in the year, and those can be a priority then. So prioritizing, I would say, for seasons of life. I think to your point about the lifestyle gig, like I love to try and integrate family into work and engagement and activities as much as I can too. So like participating in some of the activities with Boys and Girls Club or Child Serve or whatever it may be, like how do I make that a family engagement? And we talk about that sometimes like in area YP too, just because we do stuff, throughout the year, throughout the days. So like everything from coffee to lunch and learns to after work engagements. But we talk about sometimes like how do we create engagements that allow our members to engage their families and bring their families along, because a lot of people at that phase of life have young kids and can't just drop everything to go to an event at 6 p.m. at night. So like last year we did a social at the Iowa Arboretum that was family friendly. And so we got to bring our kids, and they played on the playground, and listen to music and some of those kinds of things where you can mesh family and work and life, I feel like is really valuable.
What's interesting is, and this will be interesting actually for my wife and I to unpack with our kids when they're adults. So, they're in middle school now. They'll be 14 this summer. And what has become very clear to me are the small things that they pick up just over the days, over the weeks, over the month. They can't not hear my wife and I talk about work. I mean, we're doing very similar things. We're talking about, we're promoting Ames in the greater community, and we're talking about our projects, oftentimes that we're collaborating on. And what's interesting to me, though, recently is how that is preparing our children to sort of function at like this higher level in a community. Like they love being engaged. I mean, in fact, a year ago, I had our daughter walking around, up and down Main Street, handing out business cards about live, work, play in Ames. Like this is a new campaign that we were, and she loved it too. Them just being engaged and seeing us engaged, I think it just gives them a perspective that maybe they wouldn't get other places.
Yeah, absolutely. I think some of those things, like to your point, maybe are like hard to teach in a classroom, right? So and I think as human beings, we learn by example. So like being able to watch your parents, having that sense of greater purpose and sense of community and sense of wanting to be part of something bigger than themselves. Yeah. I think that probably, whether they realize it or not at the time right now, right, that's going to instill something in them for the future. And I think that is really important to be doing that with this next generation so that they're giving back to their communities when they're at this stage of their life and career as well.
I feel like they also get this sense of like, I don't know if it's fearlessness, but I feel like they get this mentality of, well, I can do that. Like there's nothing like that is so big and so unattainable for them. And like you should have that mentality like when you're in middle school or in high school, like, the sky should be the limit. But I feel like, I don't know, just as kids progress into adulthood, maybe somehow they get pigeonholed into certain things, and like you shouldn't have that. Like you should just think like I can do that and I'm going to do it. And I don't know, it's part of it is maybe just hearing, Karen and I talk, maybe part of it they're just wired that way as well. I don't know, but it's pretty fun to unpack from time to time.
Yeah, I think that's great. I feel like I just recently listened to a podcast where it's like this next generation is like one of the things people worry a lot about is that they're like so afraid of failure. So like the example they provided was like they're not dating because they're afraid that it's not going to be like the one. So then they're not dating at all, right? And it's like that, like a little bit of like a fear of failure. And I think that we, maybe look back and like maybe we felt that to an extent too. But it's really important that we aren't afraid of failure and we're willing to try new things and willing to try something. And if it doesn't succeed, we learn from it and we go on and do something else. And so I feel like as much as that like can be instilled in kids, I think it's really important.
Do you buy into that? Do you think that's real?
About this generation?
Yeah.
I don't know. I feel like I don't spend enough time with like high school age students, but I feel like even in like maybe some of the interns we saw over the last few years, like they're a little bit more hesitant than maybe like our generation would have been. And so I don't know. I hope it's not.
Yeah, me either. It's interesting as organizations go. Ours is probably entering like this transition phase where, we have a lot of young people that are working here. And of course, we want to do our best to hire high functioning young people. And I think we do a very good job in that. But we do try to instill this, just go out and do it. Like, just go out and do it. And I always think about that just with, our team of, I could tell you how to do it, or everyone in this. I could tell you how to do it, but just go do it. You're gonna make it awesome anyway. So just go do it, and I feel like that does pay off for us.
Yeah, I think it's such a good mentality to have. I feel like you're a great example of that, Eric, with your coming to the organization and starting the podcast and the magazine. And I feel like there's been so much benefit you've seen from that, and I think that that's kind of a testament to the work you're doing. I think it is important to try and adopt that mentality and to pass that on to the next generation of leaders.
So what else are you listening to? Anything you've read, heard recently? I like that podcast.
I don't know. I feel like one of the things that I should promote actually for Area YP that we've been doing is we just started a book club this year. So that was a new initiative that we started with a program just here. We're in like the second or third month of it. So we're working on reading a professional development book. So everyone reads on their own time, and then we get together once a month and discuss the portion of the book that we read. So we're reading Atomic Habits right now is what we're reading as our first professional development book, which has been really, really interesting to read about trying to establish lasting and successful habits in your life. So we're about like 2/3 of the way through the book right now. I'm working on reading the last third now, but one of the things that we just read about was they call it the 2-minute rule in the book, where it's essentially like any new habit you start shouldn't take more than 2 minutes at first. So try it for 2 minutes. So like one of the things I've been trying to do in my life is read for like 2 minutes at night before I go to bed, because I want to start reading more. But like thinking of like if I have to read a whole chapter,
it's a lot.
It just gets overwhelming.
I know.
So like I can do anything for 2 minutes, and so then as you read, right, you're like, okay, well I could probably read for 5 more minutes, or it's like building that muscle to be able to kind of build that into like your day-to-day life and your routine. And that's been really interesting.
Is it working?
Well, this last weekend wasn't the best, but I'm working on building the muscle.
Yeah. Any work-related habits that you're trying to find?
Ooh. I probably need to work on some of the like atomic habits methods in my work as well. We talk a lot about like email management in our book club sessions, and just like how you navigate that and keep up with that. One of the mantras, not necessarily from this book, but like something else that I've been spending a lot of time thinking about is, and we say this a lot at work, is don't let perfect be the enemy of good. So, right, like time is our biggest commodity. And if you can do something like 80%, we sometimes say 80-20 rules. If you can do it 80% and it's good enough and it can, be done and you can move on to the next thing, then sometimes that's like the mentality you have to adopt, which for me as like a perfectionist is a bit challenging at times. But there's also only so many hours in the day. So I'm trying to get to that mentality.
I've really embraced that over the past several years. I certainly didn't coin it. Maybe I should have written a book about it. Then I could have made some.
You still could. There's
maybe,
still time.
I guess. I don't know. But I really, I think about work as a body of work and not just one individual thing. I think this podcast is an example of that. No episode of this podcast could ever be perfect, but I do think about, what is it over the course of, say, 30 podcasts or 50 or 100, and I think about a lot of my projects that way, and I didn't summarize it as quickly as the Atomic Habits did, but I do think about that a lot, and yeah, you should embrace that as well.
Yeah, I need to.
Okay. So give me a professional win from the past, say, week or two.
Yeah, that's a good question. From the not necessarily work side of my life, but the area YP, being involved with the area YP, I feel like the book club has been really a big win for us. So we had our first session, we had 23 people participate, which we were super excited about for the first time trying this and having a meeting on a Friday morning. So that's been a big win that I feel like we've seen with Area YP this year that we're excited to continue. And then kind of on the Chevron side of things, we've been really focused on establishing stronger relationships with our emergency response organizations this year. So we've hosted the fire department at a couple of our facilities this year, and we have a couple more on the radar to host later this year. So that's been fun to get to know those organizations a bit more and just develop some rapport there.
Back to the book club. Do those conversations kind of fuel you up? I mean, like when you leave those and you're like unpacking like sort of like these challenges of developing new habits or whatever the topic is, and you're hearing other people's perspective, do you kind of find that to be motivating?
Yeah, I think it's been really awesome. Like it's in some ways it's you feel like the just the camaraderie of like hearing other people having the same challenges as you can be like really reassuring, I guess, in a sense. And then also just like learning from other people, some of the things that they're doing to have, manage their time and be more successful in their day-to-day has been really interesting. And then just like, it is motivating to have peer peer support. So at this last session, we were talking a little bit about like bad habits as well. And obviously one of the ones all of us struggle with is like scrolling. Like you just sit down and before you know it, 20 minutes have passed. And so one person in our group said, I just deleted all the apps. Like I just deleted them from my phone. So I left that day. This was maybe 2 Fridays ago. And I literally just deleted them from my phone. I was like,
no, you didn't.
I did. I'm like,
has it been weird?
It has, but it's been kind of freeing in a sense, like to be able to not feel like that's not a thing to turn to when I like sit down, right? So it's like, what am I doing that's productive, or spending more time with, engaged in conversation with the people I'm sitting next to, or just observing the world around me. It's been good.
Well, it's interesting. So I don't think I've ever said this, certainly not on the podcast, but when I left the school district, I can't delete those apps. I mean, I work in those apps. I spend a lot of time on social media or, working through social media. But one of the things that I did when I left the school district is that I unfollowed the Ames people Facebook group. And every community has those groups.
Yes.
And it's I can still access it, but it doesn't like pop up for me. And that was awesome. I loved it. I mean, I know there's probably funny stuff on there, but it was such a time suck.
Yeah, it can be. Right. One of the people in our group was like, I deleted the apps, and then if I wanna like get on Facebook for Facebook Marketplace, like I have to do it on my computer, like on the browser.
Oh, okay.
And it's like,
all right.
It's fair, but it's like not the same experience, right? When you're like scrolling on a computer versus scrolling on your phone. So there's like ways to still like use it as a tool if you need it, but not necessarily like be sucked into it.
I mean, these are all like just it's interesting like how the themes of these challenges, like they just transcend industry, no matter what you work in. I mean, I feel like the real life of being, or at least aspiring to be a high functioning professional, like they exist with everyone. And so it's cool to hear just your group and this group unpacking a lot of that, because I feel like people who maybe are not engaged in area young professors or maybe young professionals or don't have that outlet, work can be very isolating.
Yeah.
And you always feel like the challenges that you're facing are unique to you and they're the end of the world. And then when you talk to other people, you hear how they have maybe navigated them successfully. And there's just something liberating about that you cannot get sitting on your couch scrolling and again, I don't think social media is necessarily bad or to do that from time to time, but for that to be the norm and you don't have this outlet, it can be isolating.
Yeah, it can. I think especially, like in a not like a bit of a post-COVID world where like there's so much technology. So like you're maybe not even at work. Like at work, you may not even be doing as much interaction with the people around you because you're on meetings on your computer for most of the day. So it's like maybe even pre-COVID, like you'd share some of those concerns or frustrations like with people sitting next to you or in the break room or whatever it was. And now like you may not even get as much of that. So that has been really nice to be able to share some of the same concerns that we're having and talk about ways we can work on them. And then also just like some of the wins people have been having and trying to implement those in your life has been really cool.
All right. Well, if you want to get involved in the Area Young Professionals Organization, reach out to our organization, find Grace, come to events, be present, all of those things. Grace, thank you for being on this episode of the Area Podcast.
Thank you for having me, Eric. I appreciate it.
For those listening, if you like this podcast, we would certainly love it if you would subscribe and share it with others. This is the Area Podcast from the Ames Regional Economic Alliance. Personal stories, professional journeys.